Hi, friend. It's your inner child calling. And they want churros. A new toy. And a new adventure. Or maybe 5. With the bestest besties on Earth. Find your moment at Walt Disney World Resort.
At Amica Insurance, we know it's more than just a car. It's the 2-door coupe that was there for your first drive. The hatchback that took you cross-country and back. And the minivan that tackles the weekly carpool. For the cars you couldn't live without, trust Amica Auto Insurance. Amica. Empathy is our best policy.
Hello, I'm Sarah Schleid, a producer at Wonder Media Network, and I'm so excited to be guest hosting this episode of Womanica. This month, we're talking about architects. These women held fast to their visions for better futures, found potential in negative space, and built their creations from the ground up. Today, we're talking about the first woman to be recognized as an architect in Pakistan. She spent decades building glitzy high-rises for the elite until an earthquake devastated northern Pakistan. Ever since, she has maintained that architects should serve humanity. Please welcome Yasmeen Lari. Yasmeen was born in 1941 in southwestern Punjab, which a few years later would become part of the new nation of Pakistan. In 1947, British colonial rule over India ended in the violent partition of the country into 2 countries, India and Pakistan. Growing up, Yasmeen frequented Lahore, the second largest city in Pakistan. Her father worked on development projects there. The new country required a lot of new infrastructure, and Yasmeen's father noticed a need for qualified architects. One day, he suggested to Yasmeen that she become an architect. This stuck with her. Yasmeen was 15 years old when she and her family visited London. While she was there, Yasmeen went to an interview at the School of Architecture. They asked her if she could draw. When she said no, they suggested, "You better go learn to draw first at an art school." So Yasmeen attended art school for 2 years before enrolling at the Oxford School of Architecture. During this time, Yasmeen married and gave birth to her first daughter. After she graduated, she and her family moved back to Pakistan, where Yasmeen set up her architecture firm in Karachi. There were maybe a dozen qualified architects in the country. At 23 years old, Yasmeen was the first and only woman. The first thing Yasmeen built was her brother's home. Slowly, she began designing more in a brutalist style, with blunt, sculptural outlines and heavy concrete. Meanwhile, she was also researching the history of architecture locally and building some low-income housing. But how she really made her name, and a fortune, was through huge corporate commissions that would lead to her being dubbed a starchitect. She designed hotels, the Finance and Trade Center in Karachi, and Pakistan's State Oil's headquarters, a towering building of concrete and glass. After decades of this kind of work, Yasmeen grew tired of trying to please corporate clients. In 2000, she took a step back and stopped working. Instead, she focused on studying and documenting the architectural history and culture of Pakistan. She wrote books on the subject, and she and her husband founded the Heritage Foundation of Pakistan to further this cause. But Yasmeen's retirement wouldn't last long. In 2005, a devastating earthquake shook northern Pakistan, destroying many buildings, killing tens of thousands of people, and displacing millions across Pakistan, India, and Afghanistan. Yasmeen wanted to put her skills to use in helping people rebuild their lives, especially because she didn't like the response of international aid agencies. They spoke of displaced people as victims and built them costly shelters made of concrete, iron, and tarps. Yasmeen wanted to work with local people, using local methods and materials in tune with Pakistan's heritage to build long-lasting homes. Yasmeen began designing and teaching people how to build what she dubbed barefoot architecture, structures made out of bamboo, lime, and mud. This architecture would continue to be needed as Pakistan was affected by more floods and earthquakes in the following years. In response to severe flooding in the Northwest in 2010, for example, Yasmeen designed homes raised on stilts, which survived other flooding events afterward. Teaching people the skills to build these structures empowered them to be able to rebuild if necessary, and to improve their livelihoods through their craft. These building methods were also more cost-effective and gentle on the local environment. Yasmeen also said that this method provided people with more agency and dignity. For example, Yasmeen tweaked the design of traditional wood-burning stoves, which were usually on the ground. They often exposed families to contamination and to lung problems from the smoke. She tweaked the design, called it a chula stove, and taught women how to build them. The new design brought the stove outside and elevated it so that the women were not on the ground while cooking. It required less wood and could even be fueled by cow dung. The smoke was more enclosed within the clay structure, protecting the women from exposure to smoke, and the women could decorate the stoves with their own designs and paint. Since Yasmeen started that project in 2014, tens of thousands of stoves have been built. Yasmeen still lives in Karachi, and she continues to champion locally inspired architecture that improves people's lives and is more resilient in the aftermath of climate disasters. She has said that this shift in her career, from designing for the elite to building with local, everyday people, required unlearning the egocentric ethic she was taught in school, that being an architect meant being a star, designing big, impressive projects. She encourages young architects to meet the moment and design for the many instead of the few. In 2020, in a manifesto and letter to a young architect, she wrote, "I can reassure you that nothing has been more enriching for me than the exploration of unpaved, vagabond pathways. Are you enterprising enough to seek a new world order?" For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Jenny and Liz Kaplan for having me as a guest host. Talk to you tomorrow.
I'm Nicola Coughlin, and for BBC Radio 4, this is History's Youngest Heroes. Rebellion, risk, and the radical power of youth.
She thought, right, I'll just do it. She thought about others rather than herself.
12 stories of extraordinary young people from across history.
There's a real sense of urgency in them, that resistance has to be mounted, it has to be mounted now.
Follow History's Youngest Heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
Love at first swipe? I highly doubt it. Reality TV and social media have love all wrong. So what really makes relationships last? On this episode of Dope Labs, poet and relationship expert Young Pueblo breaks down the psychology of love and provides eye-opening insights and advice we all need.
It's a big realization moment that you should not be postponing your happiness. Like, your greatest happiness is not necessarily going to come from a relationship. Your partner, they should add to your happiness, but your happiness is really coming from within you.
Listen to Dope Labs on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.